Okay, I think we're going to get started with our next speaker, Dr. Kapil Arora, talking on buying and selling manure. Dr. Arora is a field agricultural engineer with Iowa State University Extension and Outreach. He has been serving Extension clients in his current position for the past 20 years. Dr. Arora works in the areas of farmland drainage, manure management, and composting. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Arora.
By the way, I just go by Kapil. I don't really need to be called Dr. Arora, just call me Kapil. Been working with manure management quite a bit for 25 plus years. Today, I'm going to actually go through a process where I get to have you guys get to what the value of manure is. So we're going to looking at what the nutrients are, then what is the importance of timing and application methods, and then from there going into what are some of the rules and regulations around selling liquid and dry manure, and then we'll go into the questions of what is the supply and demand when you get into buying and selling manure, especially in the state of Iowa. So starting out, figuring out what is the nutrient quality, what is the value of that. Best answer I can give you is do not use book values. Get a sample of the manure you got. Many times people have focused on using book values. Yes, there are book values in Midwest Plant Service. Iowa DNR also has those numbers. But recommendation is you actually get the analysis done. Where do you get these manure analysis done? There is a list of certified labs in the state of Iowa. The list is posted over at Iowa Manure Management Action Group's website. You get there, you'll see under the service providers tab, there is listing for both soil testing labs as well as manure testing labs. These are certified labs. They'll actually get you the results that you are looking for. Iowa State does not endorse any one of them, but we just do provide the listing if you are looking for that information. How to sample manure? Once you have decided you're going to get a sample done, next question is what is the best way to get that sample? We have another publication in place. This was done in 2021. Ag Engineering 3550 is the number on it. It walks you how to get a manure analysis, manure sample done for the manure analysis you're going to submit the sample for. It is available at no cost at the Extension distribution store, so if you search for it, you will be able to get it. What is the purpose of getting that sampling done? The idea is that we get a good representative sample. When we are dealing with liquid manures, the minute agitation stops in our pits, our solids begin to settle down. The best way is that you actually get some of that sample as the load out is happening. That will get you a good representative sample that way. Liquid, if it is stored and you're wanting to get a sample done early in the season before fall application happens, then you are basically sampling the pits and trying to get a sample through the pit. You basically understand you are dealing with a stratified manure column there. You'll actually have to use a probe to probe all the way down, most likely through the ventilation pits, and get a sample with that probe. If you guys haven't seen PVC pipe that has a tennis ball stuck at the end of it, that's about the best way to go about it. Yes, you'll need to have nice coveralls and gloves with you because as you pull that pipe out, plan to get dirty. Then dry manure is a little different because how we have those things stockpiled or where the storage structures are, they are variable. The idea behind both of them is whether you have liquid manure or solid manure, idea behind both of them is that you have a good understanding of what the nutrient value is, what is it that you are actually going to be selling, or the person who's buying it from you, they need to know what they are buying from you. Yes, there are challenges. Timing is a question. Manure itself is naturally variable by itself, and there are other challenges. We got this large pit, and now we're going to take about half a bucket of that, and even after of that, maybe a little bit actually goes sent to the lab. So, but again, getting a sample is about the best answer that we have. When we are doing these things, just be sure you are safe, working around equipment, especially if there is agitation going on and you want to get in the barn and get a sample. Make sure you got enough ventilation going on in that barn and you're not inside there. So just be sure, if you are sampling, be safe out there. So once you get the sample sent in, you get the results back. What is the best way to figure out what your nutrient values are? I'm comparing them to our commercial fertilizer one-on-one. We'll talk about what the value or availabilities and other things are as we go along. Just to walk you through a few examples, anhydrous ammonia, 82%, MAP or DAP, 11% nitrogen for MAP, 52% for phosphorus. DAP is 1846. So those numbers are definitely available that we can use. Potassium is 60 units of K2O. So looking at prices, and I got this from DTN network. If you actually look at where the red line is, starting in January, our anhydrous prices actually have been falling all along. I put a little red star right there where we are just at the beginning of July here, but numbers have been coming down all last year, which is that green line up here. Prices stayed up pretty high for anhydrous, significantly up there. The red line is almost coming along to where the average anhydrous price is. That's that gray dotted line. So doing some math, I did these workshops last fall also, so I left the number for fall up there. I did the pricing at 1,055 per ton for anhydrous. 82% of that is nitrogen, so out of 2,000 pounds, which is 1 ton, 1,640 pounds is actually nitrogen. You can very easily take 1,055, divide by 1,640, 63 or 64.3 cents per pound. The prices have dropped down now. I just looked at the numbers here earlier this week. Anhydrous is at 791 pounds per ton. If you look at that conversion, prices are down to about 48 cents per unit of nitrogen. Now you can go ahead and do the same math for phosphorus, and what I'm trying to get to is what is the value as far as nutrients in the manure itself. So here if I take MAP, it's $832 per ton, but I also have 11% nitrogen in it. So I first took the calculation and figured out, okay, I got 220 units of nitrogen in there. That's actually 48 cents, which I already did on the previous slide. But to get to the phosphorus price, I subtracted out that nitrogen. So I actually ended up with just the phosphorus price at 69.8 cents. Because we are paying for both nitrogen and phosphorus, so just the phosphorus cost is almost about 70 cents per unit. If I ignore the value of nitrogen, I just take 832 and divide that out by 1040 pounds of phosphorus there, I get 80 cents per pound of P2O5. But when we go to doing manure calculations, our manure just has phosphorus by itself. It does not have the nitrogen attached with the phosphorus. Nitrogen numbers are separate, phosphorus are separate. So I sorted out the phosphorus by itself. So it's helpful when I do that calculation. So pricing potash, the current prices are at $620 per ton. That's 60% K2O, which is about 1,200 pounds out of that ton. So that gives me about 51.7 or 52 cents per pound of potash. There are other nutrients in manure as well, and these are important because these are micronutrients and some of them are expensive. Sulfur, zinc. You can get prices from co-ops and repeat the same process to figure out what that math is to come up with the actual cost value on those pieces. But what it does require you to do is spend a little bit more money on getting your manure analysis done. Typically, you send a manure analysis to the lab, they'll typically just give you percent solids, pH, and your NP and K. And that'll be about the cheapest manure analysis the lab will do for you. To get these micronutrients, you'll actually have to spend a little bit more money and get a more detailed analysis from the lab. But it is very easily doable, and the labs do it very commonly. So once you have the numbers, and now we have the numbers for the commercial fertilizers as well, the next question is what is the availability and what are the losses that we have to deal with? Especially on solid manures, not all of the nutrients are available. Even after we apply, we still don't get to 100% availability, even if we count over 2-3 years. Finishing liquid manure typically does get into that 90 to 100% availability, and that's where some of those numbers are. But we still have environmental and application losses. We have PMR 1003, which is available through Extension Store again, and this one actually has pretty good explanation on using manure nutrients for crop production and goes into a lot of detail there. Eventually it gets down to what is the point at which you are actually selling and how much of those nutrients are actually going to get transferred from your hands as the seller into the buyer's hands. So let's do a little bit of calculation here. I took finishing swine manure and I went against my own recommendation and I picked up the book numbers. So here I got finishing swine manure at 56.6 pounds per 1,000 gallons, which is what the book value is. If you were doing it, as I said earlier, I'd like you guys to actually have the numbers from the lab itself. But from the anhydrous value that I had calculated earlier, 48 cents per pound, that gives me around 24 and a half calculation there for dollars for the amount of nitrogen in 1,000 gallons. Do the same math for P2O5, that's 37.2 pounds per 1,000 gallons. Again, I have my per unit cost, multiply it out, I get almost $26 worth of P2O5. And then potash, do the same math, I'm at about $14.8 per 1,000 gallons. So numbers there, but simple. If you put a pen to a paper and you walk through it, you can calculate those for other liquid manures, farrowing manure, gestation manure, outside pits or outside lagoons. You can calculate those numbers provided you get the analysis done. So if I take my NP and K values from this calculation, I'm at about $65 per 1,000 gallons. And if I am producing, if I go back here, I'm producing 200 bushel corn, and I'm only using manure as my source. I used about 90% availability after applying it. That's roughly at about 50 units or 50 pounds of nitrogen per 1,000 gallons. And if I use 1-to-1 ratio, that my crop uses up 1 pound of nitrogen for every bushel of corn. At 200 bushel corn, that's 200 units. if you follow that math along with me. So if I'm putting on 50 units, I'm actually right at that 4,000 gallons per acre required of that finishing swine manure. So calculating it out, if $65 worth of nutrients in 1,000 gallons, in 4,000 gallons that I'm putting on, I'm at $261 worth of nutrients that I'm putting on per acre on the field, and that is just my finishing swine manure, that example I gave you. So that's the total value of it. You get the numbers changing every month. You can do the math at the time in fall when you're ready to apply manure. You can get more accurate numbers accordingly. There are skewing factors, and we'll go through some of those here as we go through. But there are other intrinsic benefits, and there is research still going on soil health benefits, soil organic matter benefits. There isn't a true way to actually calculate what is the value of those intrinsic benefits from manure that I have seen so far. Doing the math that I was just going through, we do also have a spreadsheet available. It's available in the Ag Decision Maker. You can actually download the Ag Decision Maker, and you can plug in your nutrient concentrations and put in the prices of different fertilizers, and it will actually do the math for you. So makes it a little bit easier, so you don't have to go through numbers over and over again. Manure timing and application method do make a difference. We have done some research where we are repeatedly finding that the closer you apply it to when the plants need those nutrients, you do have better availability and better utilization, and as well as you get better yields as well. This one is actually from our Nashua research plots, Northeast Iowa Research Farm. Late fall manure applied versus spring applied manure, same units, you can actually see there is a significant difference in the amount of crop yield at the end of the year. And these have been repeated over multiple years. So there is a push from our side here at Iowa State to see if we can actually apply manure more closer to when the crops need it. Nobody is ready. I've approached quite a few swine producers, and nobody is willing to let me into the fields in spring to apply manure. And they always tell me this is the reason. A tractor stuck in the field is a tractor lost that could be doing other things in the planting operations. So there is work that has been done trying to do it as side dress. This is a Camden machine out of Canada. One of our commercial manure applicators had it here. He had it for about 2-3 years, and then he sold it because, again, applying it in that early crop growth stage, there are challenges. Getting in the field, getting that drag hose drug around is a problem. Last year we did a field day here with the Danish machine. This is an agrometer modified sprayer boom that can get in the field a little later, beyond V4 stage, almost getting up to V8, almost 3 feet height. So soil conditions have improved a little bit by that time historically, and you can actually get more traffic at that point. So trying to avoid the wet spraying and trying to do side dressing when the fields are still wet, trying to get beyond that and getting more into the in-season part of it.
You're not incorporating that though, right?
No incorporation. These are just drop hoses that are dropping it right above the soil, about 6 inches above the soil.
Odor problem?
Yes, a little bit. But you are in these, we haven't gotten to the research part of it. This is just my thinking. So don't take it as research numbers or anything. When you get into weather patterns now in June and July, you have a lot wind happening by itself. We are not in calmer times. So there is a lot of mixing that happens with clean air. So yes, there is an odor potential here, but it's not expected to be as severe as when you are on calm days.
Is that soybeans?
No, this is corn.
It is corn?
It is corn.
Skinny.
Yep, it is corn. And when we did the field day, we were in corn last year. There is another machine out, and we just got a research project started with this thing last year. This is a robotic irrigating machine. Lot less complicated than this machine, but the clearance on this thing is almost 8 feet, and you can get into even tassel corn height. And we're just starting on this thing this year. We got a project up by Mason City. 360 Rain is the name, and it's 360 Yield Center, one of their products. Y drops, and they basically go all the way down to, again, the root level, or to apply manure. Yes?
Liquid only, or is there some solids?
We are applying diluted manure, so we are controlling the solids a little bit. High solids content is a little bit of question on this one yet. But they are working. They're working on it to get the answer on the solid sorted out as well. Other thing, whichever method we apply, whether we apply fall, spring, or in season, one of the things that I found out, and we did some work on this thing, is manure distribution is important. You've got to make sure all the points on your toolbar are providing manure in about the same rate as they go through the field. So your distributors become very important. This was one of the distributors we tested. You can very easily see the middle 4 points are discharging and the outer 2 are not. And you go down the field, turn around and come back, you're pretty much going to have a pattern of 4 rows applied, 4 rows not applied, 4 rows applied, 4 rows not applied. And you're applying the rate that is required, and it basically goes back to people's minds and saying, well, are my manure nutrients available or not? I apply them all out there. So the trust in the manure value plays into it. This one is showing an extreme case of 4 good and 4 bad. But distribution, even up to 20% off, can still produce the same question of variability across the rows. So the point there is, when you get into buying and selling manure, the person who's buying it from you, they are going to question, well, what is the availability of these nutrients? Do I even trust how much that you are giving me is going to be there? And that always comes up in that exchange or in that trade question. So trying to make sure we are applying as accurately as possible and distributing it as good is going to help in that trust value. Going forward, there are rules that we need to also take into consideration. If we are buying or selling liquid manure in the state of Iowa, we have Iowa DNR rules to deal with, but we do not have anything to do with the Iowa Department of Agriculture's feed and fertilizer division. They do not have any requirements on liquid manure sales. So you are in the Iowa DNR rules. Even if you are selling and buying, you still have to have manure management plans in place. You got to have phosphorus index things calculated out. Whoever applies manure needs to be certified in the state to actually apply manure out in the field. No exemptions from setback distances. There are requirements on snow-covered frozen ground rules. So you have to follow by all those things. So if you decide that you are going to bring in few of your neighbors' fields in there, you got to go through all that to make sure that it is in the manure management plan. And then there are costs for bringing those fields into your manure management plan. So there is that cost involved, especially if you have to get soil sampling done, because there are certain standards there you have to meet to get those P-index calculations and manure plans finished up. If you get into solid manures, then you have both Iowa Department of Agriculture as well as Iowa DNR requirements to deal with, especially if you are buying and selling manure. Iowa DNR will still require a one-pager on manure management plan, and all it is saying is that you are actually selling your manure, and they'll require you to give them a copy of Iowa Department of Agriculture's license. If you are selling dry manure, you will be certifying with the Iowa Department of Agriculture, and they'll issue you a license. So back with DNR, you have to give them a copy of that license, and you just get a one-page manure management plan done with them. On the Iowa Department of Agriculture side, there are two set of rules, dry manure or compost. Chapter 208 deals with just manure, which is Iowa Department of Agriculture's definition as unmanipulated manure, which is as is, manure that is produced as is, you have done nothing to it. That goes under Chapter 200A. If you are doing composting or doing manipulations, you have produced a different product, and that goes under Chapter 200 rules. When you go through them, you have to get your business registered. There are two separate requirements. You are registering as a producer of that manure, or you are also could be the distributor of manure, whereas a third party is actually getting the manure from you, and they are the ones who are going out and spreading them on the fields. In this entire process, there are fees. There is tonnage fee that you pay. Right now that I looked up, it was 17 cents per ton that is sold. That is listed on the forms. So when you get that registration done, just make sure you are checking with IDOLS as you go through the process. But again, that fee comes back into your calculations of what is the value of manure and who's paying for those fees. Manure supply and demand, this is getting into now, okay, you got the manure analysis done, you know what the concentrations are in your manure, you got the value figured out from what the market prices are, so you roughly know what is the total value of nutrients in the manure. Now the next question comes up is, are you in a supply-rich situation or are you in a demand-rich situation? So if you are in counties where there's plenty of manure and you got plenty of livestock operations, land access becomes somewhat of a premium. Everybody's wanting to make sure that they have access to land. So value of manure gets skewed in that way as to how much you will actually get paid for that. Is value of land and having the access to that land to get rid of and get that manure applied year after year more important, or is the money more important in that relationship? The other part is where there's not enough livestock operations, there's plenty of land around, and you can create a demand there. People will want to buy from you, and if there's more buyers, you can probably get more value from that manure. There are facilities in the state that have been built on places with manure agreements. People have gone out and bought 5-acre tract of land from somebody, and that person sold them under the condition they'll get manure applied to their field. Over time, phosphorus will build up. And that's another thing to look at if you are applying manure to fields which already has enough phosphorus. Is there a value to that phosphorus, or can you actually shift manure application to other fields and realize the value of those nutrients itself? Once you start getting into other fields, now the questions start showing up as to who's paying for the costs between the buyer and the seller, who's actually going to pay for pumping or loading into the manure wagons or in the spreaders, who's actually doing the transportation or trucking. And I've seen different ways people are doing. I've seen manure wagons go down the road to fields. I've seen people do umbilical cord applications, but I'm also seeing people doing tanker trailers where manure is trucked to the fields, and I got nurse tank sitting on the edge of the field with an umbilical cord attached to it. So the nurse tank is getting manure refilled over and over again through those tankers. But there is cost to any one of those methods, and who's paying for that? So then the last is actually putting the manure out in the field itself, who's spreading it, and who's paying for that cost. So those three costs are going to definitely come into play when you actually do the exchange for buying and selling. So what I have seen is both ends. I've seen people through all the manure certification workshops I've done and other folks that I've met with. In the end, it is both parties need to get some satisfaction in that trade. I've seen folks getting paid half the value, and I've seen folks getting almost 85% of that price calculated out as a value paid to them. So I've seen those numbers just in my interactions with different people. So from my standpoint, it is the seller has to be satisfied with the price they are getting. The buyer has to be satisfied with the price they are paying. And it is going to be situational. It is not one answer fits it all. So that's about what I have to share so far. And I'll take questions from you guys. Yes?
The previous speaker from Ireland talked about an air injection system in a pit that helps reduce the anaerobic activity and increases the value of the nutrients. But you guys, there's some systems out there that basically are air tubes underneath the pit. Have you seen that or done any research on that?
We have a researcher, Daniel Anderson. He is working with one of those systems right now, actually. To the best of my knowledge, the project just started last fall. So hopefully next year we'll have some data on that. It's a bubbler. Basically, it turns on for 2 minutes, then turns off, then turns on, then turns off. So we'll see what numbers we get. Just looking at the science part of it, those little bubbles that come out of it, we'll have to see how much oxygen exchange happens and how much anaerobic conditions are not or non-existent. We still have questions on that science. Yes.
The availability there, you showed 90%.
Yes.
Was that just for nitrogen?
Just for nitrogen, yes. Yes.
What about P and K? Is it readily available?
The numbers I have seen, they are readily available, yes. They are 100%. Phosphorus is going to attach to the soil, but then it is available just like other phosphorus fertilizer.
And how about the difference in how the manure is supplied? For a splash system with covers or a no-till system, I mean, do you see much difference in the loss that you get? I mean, you go by some places where they're applying manure, you can smell it. See.
Yeah, so manure that is just splashed on with a splash plate methodology, fanned out there. Ammonia is just getting exposed significantly, and you will lose more nitrogen out of that. And then it takes you longer to get back in the field to incorporate that manure into the soil. So the manure is sitting on top and is getting exposed to all the environment factors. So you will lose even more just because it's sitting on top of the soil. So what I was using at 90% was injected manure, not just splash plated. Or there are irrigation systems out in the I've seen them up in Hamilton County, Wright County. Those irrigation systems, you'll lose nitrogen out of those because you are actually just irrigating it straight out. So just remember, as you're going through the process of buying and selling manure, you got to make sure what you have, because that's one thing that will give you confidence rather than just using book numbers. Get the analysis done, get the numbers compared to what the fertilizer costs are, and then have a good way of applying manure so that the nutrients that you are providing, or whoever's buying it and putting them out in the field, the nutrients are actually available. You only get to mess up the trade once. If the buyer is not happy with what they got, they're most likely not coming back to you again next year. So it's all about that trust in this relationship, and just be watchful on different things that you have to step through.